All right, welcome to the T&W Podcast. My name is Neville Thomas, and I have my dear, awesome friend Kevin Gu Wang with me here today. Um, I hope all of you guys are doing well. We just wanted to provide this podcast as just a different form of discussion, critical thinking for students who are in college, might be going to college, or possibly leaving college and just thinking about different careers and paths. We wanted to give our opinions and just a bit of background since me and Kevin were both college students. Um, Kevin, do you want to go ahead on like more of like our
Uh,
background?
yeah, I'm name's Kevin. Basically we're both business students here at Michigan State University. I'm personally pursuing a undergrad in supply chain. I think Noel's doing the same, unless he juked me sometime in the past year.
I am doing the same. Yes, I am. I haven't changed at all.
Alright. So yeah, we kind of met freshman year or before freshman year actually. We
Mm-hmm.
There's this sort of like a summer camp type of a summer program deal run by the business school, the multicultural business programs. They called it the Summer Business Institute. We basically just lived on campus for like a week in dorms, and then like we went to all these workshops from various companies like Deloitte, PepsiCo. I remember the most notable one was it the chief supply chain officer of Uline or something
Chief
like that.
Human Resources Officer of you. He was very
Yeah,
kind, he was very energetic, and we loved his talk. It was just great listening to him. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
but yeah, that's where Neville and I met. We were kind of the quiet. Uh, would you say we were preppy?
We were very prepared. We tried coming in. People thought that we were insane, but every time the way I personally felt about the entire experience was going through the Summer Business Institute and just understanding and learning and talking. I was able to one just meet other students, get their perspective on different things, but meet with employers, and then from there I was able to understand like what is an internship, like how do I make my resume better, and like it helped me set goals. And I know for like me and Kevin, we had similar goals, and every single time, every single day, we were always trying to improve. And that's what we want to do. We want to take the knowledge we had in this experience and just share it with you guys so that you guys can take it forward and you guys can get successful. So Kevin, this past summer, I know you had an internship. Do you want to like just talk briefly about that? What you did, where you were at?
Okay, so that was one of the actually the more interesting, um, I'd say riskier internships. It was basically a door-to-door job or sales internship regarding selling educational material. So it was like books and things like that for a company called Southwestern Advantage. Um, Basically, it's one of those it's one of those internships that you go to career fair, you look at all the cool internships at PepsiCo, and then like you see this Southwestern Advantage internship, and you're like, I've never heard of this company. This seems like the most suspicious thing I've ever heard. So yeah, that was basically what I did this last summer. It was it was interesting. You basically know what you're getting into. They tell you you may or may not make money. It's dependent on working hard. It's like they're not saying like, oh, we're gonna pay you. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff. What they're saying is, here's an opportunity. Do what you want with it. You can either suck and go home, and not have money, or you can but make money, so on and so forth. So it was interesting when I first started doing the offer. I was quite suspicious, of course, because it's one of those where it sounds kind of like an MLM or one of those pyramid schemes and stuff like that. Overall, it's once you analyze the structure more, it's not. So yeah, that's why I kind of did it. It was interesting. I went down to Tennessee and then over to Virginia for the whole summer. Met a lot of cool families and sold about $10,000 of books, making about $4,000 of profit. It was
Wow.
oh yeah, best part, you basically keep track of your own orders. they have like a system for you, but you keep track of orders, keep in contact with customers, and then at the end of the summer, you actually do your own. You order the products, and then you have to handle out logistics, shipping, storage, and then how to get that from, the production facility all the way over to the customers. So I feel like that was pretty interesting. That was more of the riskier internship. Neville, I know you landed a more traditional internship. So if you want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
I did. I was fortunate enough, and I was able to go with Abbott. While there were many people had internships, and some people were getting them canceled. Abbott was a great company. They kept us, and they took care of us the entire way through. Um, this one, mine was more of like on a supply chain based. So I was an operations intern, and I was able to understand more of the different aspects of the various businesses. Uh, Within my business, it was more of like helping out where I could help improve and just take on more projects. With that, I was able to manage parts and just overall have a very fulfilling experience. I was able to understand more of like what was the difference between theory and application, because I know that's one thing that is truly um, different between like school and work, and that's something that's spoken about. Additionally, with that, just like throughout the entire internship, like even though we were virtual, like I felt close and like I was able to connect and network with others. Again, like understandings, like learnings and principles that I was able to take back, like going all the way back into SBI where me and Kevin met throughout our freshman year, taking all of those ideas and things that I had learned and just applying them to like this internship so that I was able to make the best of it. And I know like Kevin had a fantastic time. I had a fantastic time in our internships, and we were extremely fortunate to get them as freshmen, which can be extremely hard for that to happen. And so that's why we wanted to talk, give our 2 cents, and talk with you, the viewers, about what I guess the future is and like where possibly we should be putting our heads for so that we're best positioned to help provide the most amount of value. All right, Kevin. So we got a few different articles. I know you found a few different articles. Um, I think there was a few things that was like really interesting, and if we wanted to talk about it, it was more of like I think we could do that. So I know one of the things that we talked about was me and you shared this with each other was like the cramped kitchens, and like this article from the Wall Street Journal about like how like restaurants are facing a lot of crisis, and like some statistics that are being thrown around, or that I'm not certain if this is from the Wall Street Journal, but some statistics are that 1/3 of them will possibly even close down. And so, as many of our viewers possibly, and like I know like college students or even in high school, one of the common jobs is like working in a restaurant, whether you're a waiter or a waitress, or maybe you work at a fast food place. But like I know like you work in areas such as this. How have you seen this personally?
Personally, I actually haven't had as much experience with a cramped kitchen. Okay, so what am is I'm a part-time employee slash manager at a local cafe called Toast. Um, the it well, it is food service. I do handle a lot of food prep, serving, customer service, so on and so forth. But there isn't as much of the issue with cramped kitchen, mainly because it's usually just the owners and I and maybe another employee entire kitchen. So 2 to 3 people, there's not much issue there. The main problem I see is that um, orders are down like majorly. Comparing pre-COVID sales to current day sales, I would say on a good day they're about a third, and then on a bad day they're a tenth.
So then, if you,
So.
I have a question then, and like I know like when COVID first hit and like restaurants had to get shut down, and then later on we started to reopen them back up, but you couldn't come in for in-person dining as much, or that varied state by state. Um,
Yes.
by the way, we live in the state of Michigan. Just so that's
Michigan
where our
has
yeah,
a
our
bit
that's where our
more.
basis is.
Yeah.
All right. Either way, I know one thing that was said was like people were using a lot of delivery apps. Some restaurants had delivery services themselves. Other people used uh, just like DoorDash and other delivery apps like that when they were like ordering food. Did that help, or like how was like what is your perspective on it? Because I know that was something that was growing, but then when COVID hit, it was they had to like scale.
Yeah. I would say it was not what was originally predicted. Basically, when COVID started hitting, everyone started, you know, assuming that these would start, exploding. People would start ordering all their food online, so on and so forth. I would say that's not the case. I would say our takeout orders and like delivery orders and stuff like that, they're actually roughly the same. I would say there's several reasons for this. One is that you're at home, you don't have to spend so much time commuting. So going to a restaurant and sitting down and ordering
Oh, Kevin, I believe we lost you for a second. Oh, Kevin. Okay, all
all
right.
right.
So we got you back, Kevin. Sorry. Where were you at, Kevin? You were saying about it, it was still the same.
Oh yes. Orders are roughly the same. I would say there's a few reasons for this. Um, Mainly, first off, everyone's at home. They have access to a kitchen and they have more time because they don't have to spend time commuting. Another thing is that because a lot more, I know at least for students, a lot of my friends got laid off because they worked for the university and they got rid of all their undergrad employees, or the vast majority of them. So because of that, students need to, well, college students are already on a budget, and now they're on even more of a budget because they don't have any income. So ordering out used to be a luxury. That people are willing to pay because you got the experience of sitting down, nice diner service and everything. But since this is now delivery, I would say, um, at least before, at least from my perspective, right? Before COVID, I would be willing to pay for a meal just because of the experience of going into a restaurant, sitting down, and everything. I personally know how to cook, so when comparing my own cooked food versus delivered food, I often find delivered food equal or lacking. So in that case, if I have to choose between food that comes in probably a box that's not recyclable or in like plastic bag or something like that, with generating waste, and it's not even as good as what I can do, and it costs more, or I can just cook at home and not have to bother with all that. I'm getting to cook at home. So because of these reasons, yeah, online orders have not really changed much.
Okay. So then I've got an interesting question. Since and I wanted to like share thoughts and like I was really curious about this. If the statistic that's been thrown around is that like one third or at least one third of all restaurants is a lot of restaurants. Like if that many restaurants sadly do fail, and we hope that they don't, and we hope that these businesses are successful, what does this mean for a supplier aspect? As students, like we understand as like supply chain students, we understand that the basics of logistics and the theory that comes behind it. So what is this like? What does this mean? Does it mean that it becomes easier for restaurants to get more food because there's more competitors, or does it make it possibly harder because there's going to be less suppliers, or how do you believe that this works out in
In,
more of after the initial ripple effects from restaurants themselves?
I would say this would hit suppliers pretty hard, but it mainly depends on what type of restaurants are closing and what type of suppliers they use. For example, I believe most of the restaurants that will be closing are these small, like sort of mom and pop shops that were sort of not generating as much revenue, right? They don't have the ability to take advantage of economies of scale. Larger restaurants like Olive Garden, Chili's, what else is there? Applebee's, so on and so forth. They all have they're all large enough that they can have a food production facility that drives down costs. Mom and pop shops don't have that.
Can I ask a question though? Sometimes a lot of these, I'm not sure which companies, if any, out of the ones you listed, but like sometimes you can have franchises
Yes.
where it's more of like you got the brand, you're paying royalty and all that. Like, still, in the end of the day, it's a small business owner who is trying to run it,
Yes.
even though it provides a reliable brand name. So, does that change your opinion of sort, or like how does that hand how does that get
I
like
would s-
considered?
I would say that doesn't change my opinion as much. I would say there's two reasons for that. One is that the food production facilities are still corporate, so the franchisers still get that benefit. Another thing is that most of the time, franchises, if you're a franchise owner, you don't own just one. You own several in the area. So that is a bit more stable. If one store isn't doing as well, you can use profits from another store to supplement it, so on and so forth. So while I know they're definitely hit just as much, just as hard, they do have the resources to survive it. The smaller mom and pop shops are usually, like I don't know, one of them knows how to make this family recipe, and so they decide to go into business, and that's their thing that they emphasize on, like a family recipe. Most of the time, mom and pop shops are funded by one family, so that means that anywhere from like I don't know, 20,000 to just like thousands of dollars all need to be taken out from like the rent, the food, the paying, everything has to be done by that one family. So it's a lot harder on them. Additionally, smaller mom and pop shops typically depend on those local customers. And again, with all the sort of restrictions, especially in MSU, or Michigan with, the governor orders, there is a lot more issues regarding that. So there's a lot less customers.
Okay, okay, yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know. I think that's something that's we're gonna have to like see and understand more of. Like, it's not something that's just gonna be. It's not gonna just only affect one industry, like a service-based industry. It's gonna like go on to affect other people, such as the suppliers we just talked about, and the different aspects like that. Following on the supply chain topic, there was an article also that like I read and I figured I there's something that was truly interesting to read and learn about. And it was about the car service Carvana. If I'm correct, it's they allowed more of people that have like a 360 degree image of a car, like both the inside and the outside, and then from that people can like determine if they want to purchase the vehicle. And like we're seeing a lot more of where people are buying vehicles online and they're bringing it back to their home. And as we all know, vehicles are no small item to pay for. They cost a lot of money. People take out loans to purchase them, but people were buying them in a time where they couldn't even test drive it. They would buy it and then it would be right onto their driveway in however long it was. How do you think about this shift? Because one of the things that's talked about is like the importance of being in person and trying something out, or just like in retail having that in person experience. But with COVID, all of this has there's been a shift. There's been a big change in all of that.
I would say there's probably three big reasons for this. Um, let's see here. One would be just societal change. It used to be, at least in terms of cars, it used to be, well, and in clothing too, actually. It used to be a heavy emphasis on fit and tailoring for clothing, and for cars, there was a heavy emphasis on personalization and sort of like having your perfect car, basically. It was sort of a car became part of your image. Now I seem to see that it's shifting more towards clothing or um, there's a lot more general sizes, with like large, medium, small, so on and so forth. There's not much tailoring, and there's a lot more focus on comfort over anything. Style is still important, of course, but it's no longer as scrutinized as before. And same thing with cars. It's no longer part of trendy, I guess, to super personalize your car. It's more seen as a tool now it's shifting towards a car is supposed to get you where you need to be, and that's it. So that's part of it. Um, so people are just looking for tools that they can use. They're not looking for the perfect thing anymore. Another thing is, of course, COVID. It's just forcing it, so they can't go in person. Um, and then I believe finally it would just be that people are a lot more used to returning things now. For example, Amazon has a very generous returning policy. A lot of stores, it's basically expected that if you can buy something, you can return it for like the majority of the value.
But the thing is cars and returning cars are something, if I may even say, rare of a sort. It's like it's not typically accepted practice, and because there's typically, like, when you're buying a car, it's a long and tedious process. You're looking for different things that will help you, your spouse, your children, all of that, and or any other like family, friends, all those relatives, anybody who's going to be using the car, and basically. But when you have, like, I guess, like when you're buying it online, you are still going to have a few different things. Like, our return policy is going to change. It's going to be a new view on that, especially with the car because it's a high ticket item. Or how does that all work then?
I mean, like, let me ask you this. When was
Okay.
the last time you looked at somebody's car and thought, well, that's really different? Like, I bet that if you went up to any person on the street, like I'm not talking about supercars here. I'm talking about just like somebody who's going, 9 to 5 daily commute, so on and so forth. If I bet if you went up to anybody and was like, "Hey, can I look at the inside of your car?" You're gonna know how to drive that thing in like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that, like, you're driving an automatic car, you need to move it to gear, you have a steering wheel, the basic stuffs. Like, you got four
Yeah,
wheels, an engine, so hopefully a few doors. I'm just cracking jokes. Hopefully you got doors. Um, but it's but the point is that, like, I understand what you mean, where it's like there's a basic part from getting to point A to point B. But again, like, even with today, it's not everything is personalized. Like social media, it's personalized. YouTube, it's personalized. Everything's personalized. Say, and like everybody uses the fun word algorithms. The
yes.
algorithms personalize everything towards you. So I guess,
Except
like,
except for cars.
why
Cars
wouldn't a
used to
car?
be cars used to be all about personalization. Everyone wanted a specific model. Now it seems to be a lot of people are just saying, "Oh, I want maybe this brand or I want this type of car, whether it's a sedan, SUV, a truck, or so on and so forth."
True, but I mean, for a lot of brands, um, there are different types of vehicles that they have. Like, I guess, like, a prominent example that, like, even like international people will know is especially internationals, is like Lamborghini. They're famously known for their sports cars, but they make SUVs. They originally made tractors.
Yeah.
Um, and so the like I guess my point and my, like, reasoning for it is more of that, like, yes, Lamborghini is a very prominent brand, but let's just say you have a spouse and you have many children and you guys all travel together. Well, you might not choose a sports car. You'd probably choose an SUV, where even with the the brand of Lamborghini, it's the insides that not everybody's seeing is customized to you. Maybe instead of white leather, you choose black leather or brown leather, or you have those different options. And so I guess I'd personally say that maybe there's an even more emphasis on personalization, customization, because everything else around us, from like our phones or just even like the different devices we use, it's already customized to our needs. So why wouldn't this one also be, to a greater extent, matching up with everybody else?
Um, I
Can
would say
I?
that
Sorry,
yes.
I was going to say one more point. Um, and it's in the best interest for a company when they customize it to a customer's needs, because then the customer takes it. they are more satisfied with the product, they enjoy the product, and they're more likely to come back and say, hey, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long that vehicle lasts, come back to the company and say, hey, I had this vehicle for 5 years. I really enjoyed my experience. You guys did a fantastic job. Do you possibly have a newer version of this with possibly even more features, not factors, uh, and more features that could help me make my life even a bit more easier? And so it creates that whole customer loyalty when you
See,
personalize it
I
and
think
you
that's
help.
what
Go ahead.
you see now. There's there's quote unquote like customization and personalization, things like that, but it's still not, I guess, to the, well, the spirit of the term customization. Because when someone says it's customized for you, I don't mean it's like, you know, I want white trim, so it's white trim, so on and so forth. I mean, it's like made literally for me. For example, um, when I think customization, I think it's like one of a kind. You know, it's made with me in mind. What companies are doing now is, well, it makes sense for companies to do this because it's, you know, you can't be customizing everything like the way described. It's better to have some things you can control, whether the trim color, so on and so forth, and give them various options. So even if I'm super specific on all the details on how I want a car or something like that, right? I bet you there's going to be someone else in the world who wants the same thing, and they're going to customize it the same way, quote unquote, customize it the same way, so they're going to get the same car.
True. Yeah, many companies, like I know when you buy cars, it's you're not just buying one model. There's packages that
Yeah,
you can buy from, and as a result, there's different prices. But there's that choice between I want the first package or I want the third package. Regardless what it is, you get different features in each one.
yeah.
And so things change more of fitting to those needs.
So that satisfies the customer. It's a good system for the business because it's easily quantifiable. It's easy to keep track of and understand. But I'm just saying that it's not true customization, I guess.
So then, what would you consider like true customization?
Something that I would say is they built with you in mind, basically, where they take the time to like meet and then like plan out the whole thing, so on and so forth.
But then, I guess my question is this: if when it comes, like you said,
But that
people,
only exists in really, really, really high end cars. The cars that cost millions of dollars. So
but I guess let's put it this way. Let's just say those let's just say those types of vehicles were available for everybody. Just everybody got a free Ferrari, just hypothetically. Um, but I guess in this hypothetical, even then, like you said, in a world filled with 7.5 billion people, at least two people have to have the same idea of one thing. They
yes,
want XYZ. Okay.
but there's a
And
different way of going about it.
can you explain that?
If someone wants a, I don't know, a dark blue car with chrome tinge and they want their, I don't know, like their favorite animal as like the hood ornament or that, right? You can have different artists make that hood ornament, or you can have different paint, or you can like so on and
There's
so
so many
forth.
factors. You're
Yeah,
saying so many
yeah.
factors. Okay.
But if let's say it was one of these car companies where they offer you options, right? They're going to be using the same paint, same dark blue paint or something. They're going to use the same like chrome finish. They're going to use the same ornament because it makes sense. You're not going to hire one person to individually make every single hood. No, you're going to produce it in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Okay.
not going to use like a specific shade for, or like source a specific type of paint for every single car. You're just going to order in large quantities. It makes sense, drives costs down, you get more profit, and customers are still happy because they have some measure of customization. I'm not saying what we have is bad. I'm just saying it's not.
It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I guess I have a connection, and I was wondering, I guess your thoughts on it then. So, I mean, way back, like before the Industrial Revolution and all that, like there was just a history of people were specialized. When you were
Yes.
specialized, you were able to provide more value, and we learned this in economics class. By being
Yes.
specialized, then you were able to trade and provide more value. Industrial Revolution came, and people would do like the whole assembly line. You do the same task over and over again, which provided more efficiency. When COVID hit, some people were laid off, and that's unfortunate to hear. And we do feel bad, but one of the things that came up was like people were, whether they're employed or unemployed, they were starting up. You could call them side hustles, or they were just calling small home businesses,
Yes.
whether it's just providing services. Like I know some people like they created masks and they just sell masks or different things like that. And so um, some of it was just a hobby, or others wanted to just supplement some income. So I guess my question is this then: are we at a point where, like you said earlier, that in business it's right now it's more like industrialized as supply chain students. We also know like on a procurement aspect where if you buy a bulk of one thing, you can get a much cheaper price. That's a
Yeah.
that's it's not even
Just
procurement. That's just a
economies of scale and
Yeah, and that's just a general practice slash rule applied. So then my question is this: with many of these small businesses coming up, people like offering their services, um, are we coming to a point where it's a mix between specialization but also industrialization? Because there's different websites that offer different services. So there's a large access of people who can provide those services, but you also have many different kinds, like people operating as their own business. So are we coming into that kind of a mix, if that makes sense?
I'd
Or
say,
what's the next future for it?
well, I am definitely not an expert on this, or from,
No, no,
but
we're
just
just
from my
talking.
perspective. Yeah, just
We're
from my
talking.
perspective. Um, Personally, I would say it is a mix. There is a lot more larger companies. Well, they've been around forever, but large companies are still around, large corporations. As far as the personalization aspect, I would say that is done more on a individual basis, like you said, with people offering services and things like that. And that's what truly brings it from like a company customization to a personal customization.
Okay, that's very interesting.
I wouldn't say it's I would say it's just available. I wouldn't say everyone's gonna do, a personalized customization because, you know, it's fine. People are just fine with off the shelf speakers or off the shelf, whatever product it is.
But they might value something else, and everybody values different things
Yeah.
differently, as we all know. And so it's more of fitting the that customer and tailoring to their needs. But Kevin, I know you had a few articles yourself. I'm sorry I took up so much time of just going on my articles. What did you want to share?
My article that I found was mainly just Boeing is actually bringing back their 737. We all know that was on the news for quite a long time for the past couple of years before COVID. But yeah, apparently they finished up their refittings and all the software changes and everything, and apparently they bring them back. So that's
That's
interesting.
interesting.
I know Boeing has not been doing particularly great during COVID, both because of issues with, you know, not a lot of travel, causing a lot of companies to cancel orders, which Boeing really needs. So,
So then I've got a question, and then I'd like your perspective on something because it's is this more of if they're bringing it back, are they hopeful for the future that like travel is going to be back to where we were at pre-pandemic, or I guess what are they preparing for? And I know that there's an accounting principle that can be applied here, where it's in bad times if you build a lot more, you're being more efficient. in an accounting perspective. And I don't know it to the fullest extent, so I was wondering if you could explain that.
Um, let's see here. I don't 100%
It's a
know.
tactic that's used, yeah.
Like
Like our
produce more in during bad times, sort of
yeah,
like
like
the
when it's a recession. So when an item is
uh
sold, we consider it as revenue, and then that's when you consider also the cost of goods.
yes.
Like you can see it on an income statement. And so I guess like during times of recessions or crashes where there's not a lot of orders coming in, companies will typically try to build, whether it's cars or just different types, whatever their products are, and they'll keep them in inventory so that later on, when times are being good, they're able to sell them and then at which point account for the cost of goods sold. But in originally in those bad times, it shows to the investors saying, "Hey, we're still efficient. We're still being efficient while things are still bad on an accounting perspective." And so, is that possibly what Boeing is doing right now? Again, it's still speculation. We're not speaking on behalf of Boeing, but um, I guess
I
what are
guess
your
I would
thoughts?
personally say that well, part of it's obviously just because of the large media pressure. Um, they have been, you know, they have to redo this. Another thing is that the Boeing 737 is like their new plane. You know, if you have a flagship product and something's wrong with it, you don't just drop it when there's a recession. You fix it. So that's what they did. They fixed it. It has just like spec for spec, it's just better than all the older planes. You know, it's more fuel efficient. I don't know if it can fly more people, but it's probably more, yep, more people per, I guess, fuel, I guess. You can carry more person per fuel, so on and so forth. The main issue though is that, you know, other companies aren't looking to expand their air fleets when, you know, the sales and revenue are down. I think what they're doing is just showing or at least proving that their retrofits work, that they actually fixed it, so that when demand comes back up, because it will come back up, whether it's in 1 year or 2 years, so on and so forth, or a decade, but when it comes back up, they have a product that all the fixed costs are already done on. All they need to count on is variable costs now because all the development costs are done.
Okay, so I guess then here comes my next question, which is demand itself. We both know that like with many business professionals, they've had to travel, whether it's different cities. Again, it's still pre-pandemic, but it's going to different cities. And but once the pandemic hit, and options like Zoom, which we're using right now, but also Cisco WebEx and different products like that, and Microsoft Teams, when products like that became more available, more widely used, um, how did that people were able to get products? They were able to get services cheaper because they weren't paying those additional expenses of bringing somebody on a plane, paying for their hotel room, but still giving the same experience to their customers or employees or whoever their audience was. So my question is this: um, Do you think we're going to be at a point where we'll be as high as we were before the pandemic, or will we be below, or do you think we could possibly even go even higher? And I
In
guess
terms of
demand for flying.
travel, oh, it won't go as high.
Okay, so you think it's going to be below what we were at?
Yes,
Okay.
I would say my reasoning for this is that, as everyone knows, the older generation is not as well versed in modern technology as the younger generation. This is true going all the way back to, ancient times. But basically, these web conferencing and things like that. I mean, they've been around. We've heard of Skype and stuff like that, but that's only been the last decade or two. For people who've been in business for 20 years, 30 years, or something like that, they're running it, still pen and paper. Everything works. If it doesn't break, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, suddenly they have to do at home. And, once you're forced to make this change, you see the benefits. Um, I'm sure if you suggested that you use Zoom and web conferencing to these types of people before, they would reject it mainly because of all the time it would take and retraining of all the staff and changing their entire system and all of that that would be necessary because that would be a massive fixed cost that they wouldn't want to incur. But now because of COVID, they've been forced to make that fixed cost. And now that they've already made that investment, they see how cheap it is to do this. So why would you go back to using your old system when you have a working new system that's cheaper?
Well, then to answer that question, my thing is, I would say is if you're providing more of a at least most like a premium product or a premium service, at which point you want to go for is you're trying to go for a customer. I guess in the end, every business is trying to go for customer loyalty. They want the
Yes.
customer to come back. But when it comes to like a premium product, a premium service, it's all about the experience. For example, put it this way:
Yes.
take the hospitality industry, just hotels, basics. Okay, I mean, a standard hotel, just assume that that's two queen size beds, uh, and a nightstand and a bathroom, and that's the basics of a hotel. But there's radical differences between a small hotel that would be relatively cheap versus something that would be big, a 5-star hotel.
Okay.
They might still have the basics of two queen beds, a bathroom, but they're customized, they're put differently. Maybe the bathroom has glass all over it, or maybe it's outlooking an oceanfront view.
Okay.
And so I guess with that, with those premium products, giving, you're offering an experience. And even talking, in the end of the day, when you talk with somebody in person
It
and they
yeah.
shake your hand, there's a sense of trust in that moment. Even if you don't shake their, if you say I agree to everything, but you don't shake their hand, like I know Simon Sinek has like talked about it, like there's a feeling of, I don't want to say distrust, but there's something missing
Yeah.
when you shake someone's hand. You are, and you say I will work with you. You are giving them your word, and it also creates that sense of trust. And so I guess like in the end of the day, I still see that it will rise, maybe not as high or past where we used to be, but for the purpose of
It
like,
will definitely rise because like you said, it's a lot important it's very important to be in person. And say for if you're doing products and stuff like that at a factory, you wouldn't be satisfied with just, seeing it on screen like, oh, I see it being produced or something like that. You want to go in and inspect it in person. You want to see the whole thing. So, of course, travel will rise. It just won't be as high as before because I'm sure there are people before who were traveling for tasks that can now be done over Zoom.
so then I guess how does this like, let's bring this I guess back to home for both of us. And actually for you it's like in which is Michigan State colleges. It's like we're college students. We've understood this. And how does this like I guess like impact with the fact of, since we're in college, like there's a difference between right now attending classes online and then attending classes in person, and like how there's there has clearly been an expression of need in both areas: online classes for safety, in-person classes for just different students. And I can even attest this myself. I personally enjoy in-person classes more, just because it
Oh,
helps
of
me
course.
retain content better. And just the accessibility of like the professors right there. If you have any questions, you can ask right then and there. And so I guess, how do you feel like that'll come back with like the mix between online and uh, in person with college campuses? And will that possibly even change a business model of theirs?
No. Online school was always available, at least in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years. It's always been there, even while we were doing in-person classes, right? It's been there. We just chose not to do it. Why? Because we valued the in-person experience. The reason why everyone's on virtual right now is because we need to. They're forcing us.
Yes,
The
but
price is the same between these two types of learning, right? For someone who is works a lot, so they need to be able to hop into class on their laptop or something, they're still going to be doing virtual either way. But for somebody who values the in-person experience, they're definitely not going to go for the online school. So I'm just saying that these options were both present um, before COVID and right now. I would
well,
say once vaccines come out and the everyone recovers and things like that, everyone would most likely just go back to in-person classes, unless um, the price basically of the online class change.
so then here's my question then. And this is I'm trying to and I'm yes, I understand that like it was there before. Yes. But is it possible? So you said that when COVID hit, everybody had to change.
Yeah.
But the thing is before when this is pre-COVID, excuse me, pre-COVID, um, some of these universities didn't need to change because they were having successful enrollment, increasing year over year, and there wasn't a need to move to this whole online format. And when everybody did, my point is does this open up possibly some availability for students, different types of students, maybe some students who just can't come to the maybe they're international students and they can't come to the US, but they want to attend a US university.
Yes.
Can they possibly can schools possibly open up because each like in just normal times rooms have capacities, buildings have capacities, uh, colleges have a capacity of teachers and administrators and all of that when you do in person. And because we take up space, we matter, right? Basics, basics of science. But is it possible when things move online, we're able to those classes aren't limited to 30 students or 60 students or 500 students, but it's opened up to more students, but through an online format where they can get the same. Maybe they want to go to a prestigious university and a Harvard, a Yale, a Stanford, and say, but through an online format because that's what they are able to do. Slash, that fits to that. Again, this comes back to this whole customization belief.
Well, the thing is, online college was sort of looked down on before COVID happened because of several reasons. One, it's like it's easier. Everyone knows it's easier, whether it's because you have access to more resources because you're on a computer, or just because they have to change the content to
Well,
for online. Another
can I
thing
put
is
one
that
thing?
yes,
Can I? Sorry, I don't want to derail your entire thing, but I just want to put on one thing, and which is why it was like I guess like there's more of a perspective and a belief that like colleges that were doing very successful didn't need to pivot, but the colleges that didn't have large amounts of enrollment needed to pivot, and so moving into an online format allowed for more people to come in. So I guess that's where it can be looked down upon because not as many students are coming into the practice. Does that make
a
sense?
coming
For example,
into
let's put it this way. Um, sorry, one second. I need to just cough. Apologies for that. Large universities like Harvard and Stanford, they get a large amount of applications, right?
yes,
And obviously they can't accept everybody, but they but out of the few that they select, maybe that let's just say that's 5%. They'll select 5%, and um, that in itself shows when employers come that okay, at the very minimum, when they come onto Harvard's campus saying that okay, these students, Harvard has done the due diligence to make sure that these students are the top, best and brightest students in Harvard's criteria, and we agree with Harvard's criteria. So these students are the best and brightest 5% or how whatever the acceptance rate was of all those applicants. These are the best and brightest. And as a result, going to different universities, you have that, and that's why different universities have a praise to them. I'm not saying like you're honoring them like fully, but like what I'm saying is there's a respect towards like okay, these are the best and brightest under their conditions.
Okay.
And so I guess when it comes to like online schools, there's a belief of where there's not enough enrollment, so they need to increase their acceptance rates, which doesn't necessarily mean that hey, you have the best of everybody. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Um,
Go ahead. What you were saying about like why online school wasn't looked at, but how that changes.
so from how it changes now, I would say it's just viewed as a lot more viable. There's more resources towards it. Professors are now used to teaching online as well, so when they go back in person, they'll still have their experience, but they also know how to teach online now as well. That means that the online programs are probably going to be a lot better. Um, but I would personally expect that unless the online programs are made cheaper, they would not have as much attendance, I'd say. Of course, more people would be able to join on these online colleges and they wouldn't have to pay things like rent or something like that because they wouldn't have to move all the way over to the college to attend these classes. However, it's just like if you're paying the same price, would you rather be able to go on class from anywhere or would you rather be able to have the in-person aspect? I would say it's no longer as imbalanced as before because before it's cheaper but it's a worse program and it's just not as good. The only benefit was that you can go on class from anywhere. Now it's a lot more balanced as in the program is better. However, the prices are the same, so they both offer their own pros and cons.
So then, okay. So then, I guess here's my next question. When the biggest benefit for a college was the fact that you have that in-person experience,
Yes.
and COVID forced it. And I know colleges they want to come back to that in-person, but they also want to look at safety, and that's why things are online right now.
Yeah.
And so, my question is this: there's companies these days that are going and looking at the perspective of what if we don't you don't need to have a college degree in order to apply for a job. I know that's one of the things Google does now, where as long as again you're a self learner, maybe college isn't for you, but you want to like learn on your own, you've done your own projects and you've understood different things, like you're able to provide value. And if you can emphasize that, you can possibly and be a viable candidate for a Google job. So my question is more of this: is colleges now in competition more of with different apps, different websites that teach people and different, basically different instructors that teach people different types of content, whether it's using a software or just drawing a piece of art. Are colleges back in competition with them, and have they lost the level that they used to have on that playing field, or how do you how do you see the future of colleges?
Personally, I would say in person would still be focused on, but there would just be instead of being the main focus, it might be more focus and attention is shifted towards the online program. Um, Mainly just because it is so much simpler to run. Additionally, I see that, well, I believe that there might be more classes shifted towards or more professors hired exclusively for online program. Um, I mean, traditional professors have been very expensive to hire and maintain, at least university staff wise. Just usually make triple, like 6 digits, something like that. So if you have an online professor, you might be able to lower pay or so on and so forth, and you'd be able to get more value out of that because they could be teaching to a class of, I don't know, 600. I
Mm.
think at least in
Or possibly.
colleges, I think the in-person value is more valuable in those smaller classes when you have those, 30 students, so on and so forth. I think there's going to be a lot bigger shift towards there and the big auditorium halls where you got a couple hundred students walking in. I think those will be gradually shifted out.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, more students with online. You could possibly bring in more students, and like you could possibly even pay the online professors um, different amounts. Again, it all comes down to the value they provide.
And then
More
depending on how they run the program, if they have like a all in-person program versus an all online program, I'm sure there's going to be a division there as well, where people are like, oh, was your degree online or was your degree in person? But I don't know if that's how they're going to run it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we don't know. We're speculating, but we're trying to think more critically of like how things will be. But okay, I think this is time, and we have to call it here. But thank you everybody for joining with us on the T&W podcast, and um, we hope for you guys to be with us here on the next one. All right, bye everyone.